In today's Farm Report, life may seem more hectic with now cell phones and smartphones available to us, but as Jim Salfer with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office points out, taking a little bit of time to recharge and refocus can bring added productivity to the farm.
If you've ever been around people from other parts of the world, particularly Europe, they tend to think of us U.S. citizens as a little bit crazy, and that's primarily around our work schedule. If you talk to people from Europe, they go, you guys in the U.S. just work way too hard. And they're speaking of everybody generally, but there's nobody I don't think works any harder than farmers, especially during this time of year, June and July. So I'm going to encourage people to take a break today. Basically, that's the story of that. And, there's different kinds of breaks. I'm not encouraging people to take 3 weeks off or a month off, but I think during our hectic schedule, it's really important to do that. And I think the research would show pretty clearly that little breaks, it really makes you more productive. You're less likely to have any accidents or injury. So some of the things you really could think about on a daily basis that we could do is some people work out. I know more and more farmers that take up running or exercise. Another thing that I think we've really gotten away from is family meals. I know growing up it would be a rare day that we didn't go in the house for breakfast and lunch and supper all together. And now you're on farms and I think everybody's just grabbing bites to eat. So I think in a way maybe we've got more hectic, but that I think is a really valuable way to sit down and have a break. One thing after you have a really a long period of time, like say you're harvesting haylage or you're doing something and you've been working really hard for a 2 or 3 week period of time or maybe even a week, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with packing up the kids and going to a lake for an afternoon or go fishing. There's a dairy farm that I work with and they fish fairly often. I think that's really nice. They take the kids and go fishing maybe a little bit more in the winter, but if you can take that break, I think it really helps. And then don't forget to take vacation, and I'm probably about as bad as anyone in taking vacation. But and I'm not saying you have to go away 2 or 3 weeks, but I think it's really good to get away for 3 or 4 days. And I know it's easier to get away, but it's harder to get away from things because it seems like we're always tied to those goofy phones that we've got on us. But if there's any way you can avoid, at least minimize the amount of time you're going to spend checking email or spending time looking at your phone, I think long term it's really good for our health. So I'd just like to encourage everyone here, not just dairy farmers, to try and spend some time this summer and get away and really maybe reflect on life and enjoy a life a little bit more than us crazy Americans like to do with our work habits. This has been Jim Salfer with the University of Minnesota Extension in St. Cloud.
Wasps native to Minnesota may help researchers in the fight against the emerald ash borer. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture and the University of Minnesota Extension Service are collaborating on the Wasp Watchers program, which uses volunteers to look for and monitor the smoky-winged beetle bandits. The beetle bandits are ground-nesting wasps that are docile and do not sting humans. Female wasps collect wood-boring beetles, including the emerald ash borer, to feed the young. The emerald ash borer first arrived in Minnesota in 2009, is now found in 8 counties: Anoka, Dakota, Fillmore, Hennepin, Houston, Olmsted, Ramsey, and Winona. For more information on the emerald ash borer, go to www.mda.state.mn.us. The dairy industry has definitely seen some technology changes over the years, and that includes systems to monitor cattle activity. Jim Salfer with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office takes a look at that technology and some of the questions producers should be asking before starting to use them.
About a month ago, the University of Minnesota, we hosted a Precision Dairy Conference down in Rochester, and there were a lot of discussions and a lot of presentations on different kind of sensors on dairy cows. That's really where a lot of the research is right now. It seems like almost every company is making some kind of sensor for dairy cows. So for people that aren't listening and maybe familiar with these are kind of either it's a collar typically that goes around a cow's neck, or maybe a foot tag that goes on her foot, and it keeps track of the cow's activity, and it can keep track of a lot more things than that. Typically it's an activity. A few of them will monitor things such as temperature, eating time, chewing time, rumen function, cow position, so whether she's lying or standing. And they're often a lot of these are often combined to indicate the overall health of that particular cow. And so how long does it take to pay these back? That's a question we had actually one night on which one of these will become obsolete and how fast the payback is. And that maybe varies a lot from farm to farm. It's like any other system. If you have it and you use it a lot, it's likely to pay for itself fairly rapidly, maybe a 1 to 5 year payback. If you have it and really don't use it very much or use it to its full capability because you don't like the software or you just are not used to it, your payback is likely to be a lot longer. But what are some of the questions you should be asking yourself if you're a dairy producer and you're thinking about purchasing one of these systems? Well, probably most important with any of these systems is what kind of training or support is provided with the system. I would surely ask for some good, unbiased research information that these systems work, because Jeff Bewley from Kentucky was telling me that he's got many monitors on lots of cows, and some of them there's quite a bit of difference in some of the quality and how well the algorithms calculate activity and how accurate some of these systems are. So you'd want to really ask for some research to show that these systems work, not maybe just a testimonial of a farmer that is using one. One thing you want to know is how long the warranty period is on the tags or these other systems, like the batteries, how long do they hold up, because there's no doubt these are in a tough environment in our barns, and so systems do go bad, or there's collars and things that go bad. How big of an area will the tag or the reader antenna cover? What kind of routers do you need? How do you collect the data? Again, as I mentioned earlier, what's a payback system? And then are these systems compatible with any management software that you might have on your farm? So I think these do have the potential. We're just going to continue to see them. Just make sure they're a good investment for you on your farm and in your management style. This is Jim Salfer with the University of Minnesota Extension in St. Cloud.
It started back in 1935 when President Franklin Roosevelt began a program to bring electricity to rural areas.
As we get this program into operation, it will mean a greater contribution to general national prosperity.
And now, 80 years later, the program is still working.
All of this makes life better. All of it improves economic opportunity in rural areas, and that's why we continue to invest hundreds of millions of dollars every year.
This week, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack announcing loans totaling $349 million, 15 rural electric modernization projects in 13 states.
Making sure that the service is going to be efficient and effective and reliable and affordable, which allows the rural communities to make the case for business development.
And reliability vital for farmers, especially livestock producers,
who may have confinement facilities, especially during this period of time when we're seeing significant heat. It's important and necessary for ventilation systems to work without disruption.
Vilsack said USDA has put $31 billion into rural electric projects in the last 6 years. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.